let's focus on Halifax. They're playing on Saturday. They have a chance at lifting the North Star Shield, playing in the Canadian Championship. Josh, does a result like this today, and this is a washout game in a lot of ways for Halifax, but does a 5-0 thrashing hurt or help them leading into the CPL final?
I would go behind door number 3. I don't think it really matters. I do think this, because we knew Pacific was going home, right? This was an option to rest some key players. I just don't think if you're going to field your best 11 or anything close to it, you have a good enough understanding of what you can learn from it, what you can take away from it, and what kind of changes you want to make moving forward. So I think this is just the kind of thing, I think Stephen Hart says to his guys, let's wipe the slate clean. I think he knew probably psychologically they weren't in it from the get-go. And if that's the case, I don't know how much you can kind of critique or learn from this performance. So I don't know. I'm watching it like we all are, thinking is this the kind of thing that they're really going to say, forget it. We have to really, show who we are. I don't think so. I don't know.
And during the game, Andy brought up a really good point while we were watching just off set here. She said, it's very much one of those things about sports that's so true, where if Halifax goes out and they get throttled by Forge, then we say, what was Stephen Hart doing? They weren't mentally there. But if they go out and they win, we rested the guys. They managed the minutes really well. So we'll have to wait and see for how they do on Saturday. Kurt, anything to add about what you expected versus what we saw here tonight?
I don't know if it's really not gonna help them. I just think it's, what are you trying to get out of the game, right? So I look at some individuals. So Jaffrard, for instance, wasn't great tonight. He wasn't sharp. He gives away one of the passes on that leads to one of the goals. So you're looking at little things around in this game where, what does it do for the confidence level of certain players? Because if I'm a player in that game, I want to come on, maybe it's just 20 minutes, maybe it's 30 minutes, maybe you just play the first half. I want that to be a really sharp first half, 45 minutes. I think a lot of players didn't have that for Halifax tonight, which does it leave a little bit of doubt in their minds.
The one reason I think that maybe it could help the team is I look at 2 players that were out, Sissoko and Oxner. To me, 2 of their most important players. And those players can look at this performance and say, wow, I know how important I am to this team's success moving forward. So I have to have a huge game to win this tournament, right? So to me, that's something that maybe you mentioned certain guys, individual performances, and maybe it's the guys that were on the bench tonight that can say, look, I see it now. I see what I have to do. I see what happens when I'm not in the lineup, Sissoko in particular. So maybe in that way, it does help them, but I still think it's kind of a wash for me.
Now, Josh Kloke went away to Bracebridge, the Kloke Cottage complex, and had some time to reflect and unwind and relax. And while he was there, he realized that some of his discourse over the tournament might have been a little bit unfair to the Halifax Wanderers, and he wants to address you, Wanderers Nation. So, Josh, I will turn it over to you now. Please air your grievances, get it off your chest, whatever it is you need to say.
The airing of grievances, that's right. We need a metal pole here somewhere. Look, I probably in a previous podcast unfairly used the term lucky to describe Halifax's play. And, I got roasted for it, and rightly so, because it's a catch-all term, and that term doesn't really have the level of nuance required to talk about a team like Halifax. The reason I used lucky was because compared to the rest of the league, they were just doing far more with their opportunities. And I think if we look at things on balance outside of the very top teams, Forge, the finishing has not been great overall in this tournament. I've said it multiple times. I've praised Halifax's build-up. They're such an attractive team to watch. And I've praised their team unity, their cohesiveness, their style of play, the way they play for Stephen Hart. And I was waiting for the other shoe to drop, and I was waiting for them to fall off, perhaps. They've just been the best finishing team this tournament. They've kind of been hiding in plain sight, and I just have to admit that. Look at these stats here. If we're talking about how effective they are, they have done more with less. Okay, Halifax have gotten more. They've averaged just 2 shots on target in the box per goal. And you can see where that ranks amongst teams like Forge and Cavalry. Like I said, they're just doing so much more, and they're just capitalizing on their chances. So I shouldn't have called this team lucky. Okay, they just get in the box and they do good things when they're. And that's the thing with numbers. You want evenness, you want an explanation, but when they don't account for these numbers is the way teams are just playing in a short amount of time, the way they're playing, Halifax is playing for Stephen Hart, the momentum they have. Scoring is a streaky thing, and sometimes in the tournament, the numbers don't tell the whole story. This is one of those occasions, okay? I have to give credit to certain parts of Halifax's team, and I think I should probably give credit to their finishing, which has not, in fact, been lucky, but which has been, in my opinion, looking at the numbers, looking at this whole tournament on balance, quite elite. First things first, I love the passion that we've seen from fan bases this tournament. I love that I had Halifax fans coming after me saying, this team is not lucky, they're good. And I guess you have to be good to be lucky, but we'll talk about that another time. Look, it's not an apology because I believe the stats do reflect what this Halifax team is about. I mean, if you look at their expected goals, you could look at that and say, and Kurt, I know you've taken issue with this, and rightfully so. You could say, well, there's more to it than just the expected goals. If you look at that stat that I showed, you know, they get goals by shooting on target in the box at a better rate than any other team, right? So maybe over a longer season, things would balance out, but sometimes the other shoe doesn't drop. That's what I was trying to say. Like sometimes these teams just separate themselves from the pack. And if we're looking at like a regressing to the mean, sometimes that just doesn't happen. And that's why you do kind of have to like Halifax going into the final because they're just playing on such a high. They're getting the finishing when it matters the most. And like, look, maybe it might take a little bit of luck on the day, but no, I'm not going to apologize for using stats to describe this team. I chose the wrong word. Wasn't the first time, won't be the last.
Do you think Stephen Hart needs to apologize to the fans?
No.
I don't think he needs to apologize to the fans, but I was surprised to hear him say he was surprised by the first half considering the lineup he put out to start this match.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this, and it's an extremely difficult thing for all of Halifax's players to have so much on the line in every one of those early opening stage games, right? How close was the table in the opening stage? And then everything's on the line again for the first two group stage games. It is hard to come out when you already know your spot is sealed in the final and really have everybody compete at a high level. And even if you have just a few guys taking plays off, one or two guys just aren't fully there. They're not fully involved. They're not fully going 100 miles per hour. It can hurt you, and that can happen in these games.
Yeah, I think we're going to talk about this more, but they've surpassed all expectations for this team. So I don't think an apology is necessary because, you know, if you had said to Halifax fans, right, we're going to lose 5-0 in the final game, but we're going to make the final, any Halifax fan would take that.
Yeah.